Hello, everybody. So, I thought that since we're coming to kind of the end of the year, the end of the school year, at least for me, that we could return to some of the books that I've done chapters of in the past to kind of make our year full circle, right? So, I thought we could read a story from our Chris Grabenstein book, Super Puzzletastic Mysteries, short stories for young sleuths from Mystery Writers of America. And I thought it would be fun since I've done the first story in this anthology, this collection of short stories, right? That we could do the final story in the book as well. So that story is Tricked, a Frightened Story by James Ponti. Well, here we go. Can you keep a secret? I hope so, because I've got one that's totally hush hush. My name's Florian Bates, and I'm a seventh grader at Alice Deal Middle School in Washington, D.C. Okay, so that's not a secret. All you have to do is open up a yearbook to find that out. No, the secret part is that when I'm not in school riding my bike or doing other typical 12-year-old stuff, I'm a consultant with the FBI. Yes, that FBI. My best friend Margaret and I are part of the Bureau's top secret special projects team. We've recovered priceless masterpieces stolen from the National Gallery, rescued a classmate who'd been kidnapped by foreign agents, and even exposed a deep cover Russian spy. But for our most recent case, we weren't on an assignment for the Bureau. We were just trying to tape a segment for the afternoon announcement. Hello, I'm Margaret Campbell, reporting from backstage at the Alice Deal Auditorium, she said, holding a microphone and doing her best impression of a news reporter. Dating back to 1893, the Stanley Cup is the oldest professional sports trophy in the world. Cut! I called out from behind the camera. Why? She asked. What's wrong? You need to speak up, I said. It's really loud in here. She cleared her throat, double-checked her script, and nodded when she was ready. I pressed the record button and signaled her to start. Hello, I'm Margaret Campbell, reporting from backstage at... Cut! Still too quiet. She gave me a look. That, Margaret, are you just messing with me or are you being serious look? Any louder and I'll be yelling, she said. That'll look ridiculous. How do you think it'll look if it seems like your lips are moving but nothing's coming out? Our problem was, on the other side of the curtain, the entire student body had filled the auditorium and was now stomping to the beat, coming from a band made up of sousaphones, trumpets, and drums. They also chanted, Rock the Red! Rock the Red! We weren't the only ones battling the noise. A woman nearby had to practically yell into her phone just to be heard, and a reporter from the local news huddled with her producer and a cameraman to figure out how to set up a shot. I spied on them to see how they solved the problem. Try standing closer, I said, motioning Margaret to step toward me. And lean forward when you speak. Look how she's doing it. Margaret moved closer, and I had to adjust the focus. Once I was ready, I signaled her to start. But she just stood, motionless. I figured she'd miss my signal, so I exaggerated it. Still no response. Finally, I whisper shouted, Go! Frozen like a statue. That's when I realized Darius King, all-star center forward of the Washington Capitals, was walking right toward us. His nickname was Deke, and Margaret was one of the hardcore superfans who called themselves Deke's Geeks. She could tell you all of his stats and accomplishments. She knew the name of his dog, Puck, and his birthday, November 20th. She even knew that he ate grilled chicken, brown rice, and steamed broccoli before every game. There wasn't anything about Darius King that Margaret didn't know, except how to talk to him. She was totally fangirling as he walked up wearing his red number 42 jersey with a blue C on the upper left, signifying his role as team captain. He flashed a huge smile and said, "Hi, I'm Darius." "Nice to meet you," I replied, shaking his hand. "Florian." We turned to Margret, but all she did was nod, repeatedly, like a bobblehead. After an awkward silence, I nudged her with my elbow. "And you are?" "Oh, yeah," she stumbled. "I'm Margaret Campbell, reporting from backstage at the Alice Steele Auditorium." Yeah. She froze again, totally mortified. "I mean, I'm Margaret, and I'm a geek. No, wait, a geek. Darius totally ignored the stumbles and said, "So nice to meet you." She went to shake his hand, which might have gone better if she hadn't forgotten she was holding a microphone. By the time he walked over to the woman on the cell phone, Margaret was trying to disappear into the folds of the curtain. "Tell me the camera wasn't running," she said desperately. "Oh no, it was running the whole time." She shook her head. "I can't believe I told him I was a geek." I laughed. "I can't believe you think that was the worst part." Margaret had been a fan ever since Darius joined the Caps. Part of that may have been because he, like her, was African American, not too common in professional hockey. He also led the team in scoring, just like Margaret was the top scorer on our school soccer team. Mostly, though, she admired all the work he did in the community. Darius ran street hockey clinics all around the district. He sponsored a citywide book club with the DC Public Library. And he did whatever he could to connect with local schools, which is why he was a deal. Just 5 days after winning the Stanley Cup, he brought it to our campus so we could see it up close. The Stanley Cup was the oldest professional sports trophy in the world. It was silver with a bowl at the top, stood just under 3 feet tall, and was awarded every year to the champions of the National Hockey League. According to tradition, each player on the winning team was given temporary possession of the cup to celebrate as they wished. As a result, it'd been drunk from and eaten out of, dropped and dented, misplaced and mishandled. One time, it was even left in a snowbank on the side of the road when some players changed a flat tire on their car and forgot to put it back in the trunk. It had also been stolen multiple times. In 1970, someone nabbed it from the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto. And not long after Margaret got all tongue-tied and called herself a geek, someone snatched it from Deal Middle. Although we didn't learn that until later in the day. First, there was an assembly. Darius gave an inspirational talk. He showed hockey highlights on the screen, and he opened a large black case to reveal the Stanley Cup. The crowd roared. The Capitals pep band, which had come along for the fun, started playing, and Darius carried the trophy up and down the aisle so that everyone could take pictures. It was beyond cool. Next, we went out in groups to the parking lot, where Darius led street hockey clinics. Margaret redeemed herself during one of these by putting 3 straight slap shots into the goal. Each time, Darius yelled, "And she put the biscuit in the basket!" Finally, he got a break while preparations were made for an after-school parade. It was scheduled to start in our parking lot and go down Nebraska Avenue to Wilson High. This was during 6th period, which is when we heard our names over the loudspeaker. "Will Florian Bates and Margaret Campbell please come to the office immediately?" It was our principal, Mr. Albright, and it sounded urgent enough that Coach Lapman told us to forget about our algebra quiz and go. "Any idea what this is about?" Margaret asked as we walked down the hall. "Maybe Mr. Albright saw the video of you with Darius and wants to know if you'd like to transfer to a different school." She gave me a look. "I'll remember this the next time you do something foolish." which probably won't be too long from now. I know, I said, still laughing. That's why I'm making the most of it while I can. We were surprised to find Mr. Albright waiting for us in the hall outside of the office. He appeared more frazzled than usual. I'm sorry to put you two on the spot like this, he said, looking around to make sure no one could hear us. But we have something of an emergency. Okay, said Margaret. Why call us? He took a deep breath and dived right in. I don't know what you do for the government, he replied. I just know that from time to time the FBI comes for you, and when they do, I don't ask questions. We're not allowed to talk about it, I said. I understand, and I'm not asking you to. It's just that we have a puzzling situation, and I thought with your experience and skill set, you need us to solve a mystery, asked Margaret. Exactly, he said, and preferably without involving the authorities. That shouldn't be a problem, I replied, intrigued. He sighed and said, I was hoping you'd say that. We bypassed the front desk and went straight to his office, where there were already two people waiting. Darius King and the woman we'd seen backstage talking on her phone. They looked extremely troubled. Mr. Albright introduced us. Florian, Margret, this is Darius King, as I'm sure you know, and Juliet Tremblay. She's with the Community Relations Department for the Capitals. Who are they? Demanded Juliet. They're here to help, said Mr. Albright as we took our seats. Juliet frowned. But they're kids. You said you had experts. They're the experts, he said. Trust me. This just keeps getting worse, she said, resigned. What keeps getting worse? I asked. What's the problem? This, said Darius. Between them was a large black case. He opened it to reveal foam padding with a cutout where the Stanley Cup was supposed to be. Where's the cup? Asked Margaret. We don't know, answered Darius. I quickly shifted into detective mode. Then tell us everything you know. Why? Asked Juliet. How can two kids help? By using toast, I answered. Toast, she said. Toast stands for the theory of all small things, said Margaret. It's how we solve problems like this. The idea is that big things can be misleading, I explained. So we focus on the little details, the ones that get overlooked. If you add them up, they lead to big answers, like where the trophy is. I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work, she said. I need to call the team and let them know what happened, even if that means losing my job. I needed to convince her, which meant I needed to show her how toast worked. I studied her as quickly as possible. She looked to be in her late 20s and was dressed in a red business suit with a blue blouse. She had a Capitals lapel pin, and the wallpaper on her phone was a picture of her holding the Stanley Cup. Everything about her was neat and tidy, except for the pencil she nervously wiggled between her fingers. It was covered in bite marks. That's when I knew how to get her. Look, I said, I know you're stressed. You're worried about your job and the cup. And that's on top of everything to do with your wedding. But give us a chance before you give up. She gave me a perplexed look. My wedding? Aren't you getting married this weekend? Yes, she said, incredulous. But how did you know that? Watch this, Margaret whispered to Darius. First of all, you're wearing an engagement ring, I said. That doesn't tell you I'm getting married on Saturday. No, but your fingernails do. She gave me a confused look. Everything about you screams Washington Capitals team spirit, I said. Your clothes are team colors. You're wearing a Caps lapel pin. And in this picture, your nails are red and blue as you hold the Stanley Cup. I pointed to the photo on her phone. But that couldn't have been taken more than a few days ago, I continued. And in the middle of all the madness that's followed the team winning the championship, you've already had your nails redone, a subdued shade of ivory. She reflexively checked her fingernails as I talked. You've also stopped biting them, I continued, probably so they'll look good in the pictures. Now you bite your pencil instead. You know the pencil with the logo of the bridal shop in Georgetown? She went to interrupt, but I just kept going. Earlier, when we were backstage, you made 2 phone calls. You weren't eavesdropping? She said. Not on purpose. But you were talking pretty loud. The first call was to check on the weather forecast for this weekend. My guess is that the wedding is outside. The second call was about seating arrangements. That call was to my mother, she said. You were speaking French? I speak French too, I answered. I lived in Paris for 3 years, although judging by your accent, I guess you're French Canadian. Montreal, maybe? There was stunned silence around the room until Margret turned to Darius and said, See what I mean? Toast is freaking awesome. I don't know about you, said Darius, but I think we should give them a chance. Definitely, answered Juliet. What's our first step? Let's go back to the auditorium, I said. That's where this all started. Moments later, we stood on the stage and looked at a sea of brown wooden seats. We have to establish a timeline of events, I said. First, the curtains were closed, the band was playing, and everyone was chanting Rock the Red. We were backstage when Darius walked in and Margret made a fool of herself. Hey, Margret said as she gave me a sharp jab in the side. Just recreating this scene, I said. Facts are facts. Darius leaned over to her and said, You didn't make a fool of yourself at all. Darius talks, I continued. We see highlights from the season and he unveils the Stanley Cup. Did I miss anything? No, said Darius. So far, so good. What did you do with the cup after that? Asked Margret. Put it back in the case, said Juliet. And who took the case? I asked. I did, said Juliet. It's my responsibility. It's really big, I said. Is it hard to carry around? No, it's got wheels and a handle like a suitcase, she explained. It's easy. So then you wheeled it outside for the hockey clinic? Asked Margret. No, said Darius. We did an interview with... He turned to Juliet. What's her name? Kinsley Vance, sneered Juliet. You don't like her? I asked. I don't like when TV crews show up unannounced, she replied. If she wanted to interview Darius, she should have put it in a request to the team. Sorry about that, the principal said sheepishly. Her daughter is a student here, and I told her she could come. Yes, but she knows better, said Juliet. And it wouldn't have mattered except Kinsley's famous for throwing out surprise questions, always looking to trip someone up and get a scoop. That's why I stood next to her for the whole interview. I wanted to hear everything. Where was the cup during the interview? I asked. In the shot? They wanted that, but I told them no, said Juliet. It's big and silver and reflects a lot of light. It would have taken them at least 15 minutes to set up the lights, and we had to be at the clinic in 5. So I told them if they wanted the interview, they'd have to do it without the cup. If you were watching the interview, said Margret, that means you weren't watching the trophy. Juliet realized she was right. Yes, but only for a few minutes. And there was just the 4 of us, Kinsley, the cameraman, Darius, and me. What about the producer? I asked. Earlier, there was a producer with them. I didn't see any producer, said Juliet. Margret and I shared a look, thinking this might be significant. Before we left, I pulled Mr. Albright aside and said, I know you don't want the authorities involved, but if we can't find it, this may become a crime scene. He understood what I meant and used his walkie-talkie to call the chief custodian. He had him lock all the doors to the auditorium and told him not to let anyone in without his permission. We went to the parking lot where preparations were underway for the parade. There were cars and floats and some fans already lining the street. They cheered when they saw Darius, and he waved back and smiled, giving no hint that anything was wrong. The parade starts in 39 minutes, Mr. Albright said, checking his watch. If we haven't found the cup by then, it's gonna be pretty obvious. He motioned to the convertible at the rear of the parade lineup. A sign on the car read, Darius King and the Stanley Cup. That's not our only problem, I said, surveying the parking lot. Everything's been taken down from the hockey clinic. The crime scene's already changed. Actually, no, corrected Juliet. I was worried about all the people running around, so I locked the cup up with the band's equipment. In the corner of the parking lot was a truck with a cargo trailer. Washington Capitals pep band was painted on the side, along with pictures of the team's logo and the Stanley Cup. I couldn't believe it. You've had the cup for less than a week, and they've already put it on the trailer. They're hardcore fans, said Darius. Sometimes a little too much, added Juliet. What do you mean? Asked Margret. They're not officially part of the organization, she explained. Sometimes they forget that. They expect to be treated like employees instead of fans. I always thought they worked for the team, said Margret. Does that mean when they play at the games, they have to get their own tickets? Yes, she said, which they often complain about. We reserve them a special spot and let them use an employee entrance to bring in their instruments, but they're ticket-buying fans just like you. Deke, called out one of the band members. Come take a picture. The man was Robert Besser, sousaphone player and leader of the band. He excitedly took some selfies with Darius next to the trailer. I can't believe you've already got it painted, said Darius. That's just the tip of the iceberg, he said excitedly. Check these out. He opened the trailer to reveal an extremely well-organized instrument storage area. There were sousaphones and trumpet cases held in place with bungee cords. 3 bass drums were stacked on top of each other like a column. And catching my particular attention, there was a large wooden storage case that looked to be the perfect size to hold the Stanley Cup. Besser, though, wanted to show us drum heads. Look at these. There were 5, and each featured a bright silver Stanley Cup. I had them specially made. They're great, said Darius. Then he changed the subject. Listen, we need to ask you some questions. Sure, he said. Anything. But it's got to stay between us, added Juliet. We have to keep it in the Caps family. He shot her a look. Oh, so now I'm part of the family? There was tension, but Darius quickly diffused it. Of course you are. Then he added, and maybe I can sign some things for your shop. It turned out Besser owned a sports memorabilia and card shop in Bethesda. Of course, said Besser. Anything for you, Deke. Darius looked at me. Go ahead. Ask him your questions. Where was the Stanley Cup while Darius taught his clinics? I asked. Right in here. Besser motioned to the trailer. Did you keep an eye on it? Asked Margret. Didn't have to, he replied. I closed the trailer and locked it. He motioned to a padlock on the door. Me and the other sousaphones had to practice. We got a new number we're premiering at the parade today. He turned to Darius. You're gonna love it. It's called Deep to Deep. I can't wait, Darius said. I was just about to ask another question when something caught Juliet's eye. What is she doing here? We saw Kinsley Vance and her cameraman watching us from across the parking lot. She already got our interview, Juliet said. can't believe she'd wait around all day just to get some video of the parade. She didn't wait around, I said. She must have left and come back because she's wearing different clothes. You're right, Juliet said. Now that really makes no sense. What do you mean? I asked. She can't edit the video together with what she shot earlier, she explained. It'll look wrong if her clothes change in the middle of a story. It's called a continuity error. So that means she's here for a new story, Margret said. No one said it out loud, but we knew what that story might be. The disappearance of the Stanley Cup would make for a huge scoop. She noticed us watching her and smiled. Before we left, I had one more question for Besser. What goes in there? I asked, pointing at the wooden storage case. A glockenspiel, he said. It's like a xylophone with a harness, so you can play it in a marching band. I don't remember one earlier, I said. That's because Tony plays the Glock and he couldn't make it, he explained. He's a dentist and had to work. Can I see it? I asked. The glockenspiel? Said Besser. It's not in there. Tony keeps it at his house to practice. No, I said. Can I see inside the box? The moment turned suddenly tense. In effect, I was calling him a liar, and he didn't like the implication. But I was also with Darius, so he went along with it. Sure. He stepped up into the trailer and opened the case. See? Empty. Thanks, I said. I turned to Mr. Albright and gave him a little look. Right, he said. I'm going to get a resource officer out here to secure the scene and make sure nothing gets disrupted. Wow, Besser said, shaking his head. Now it's a scene. He pulled the trailer door shut and padlocked it. Don't bother, he said, handing Darius the key. This is the only key. You keep it. Then he shot a look at Juliet. You know, in the family. Thanks, Darius replied. As we went back into the school, I felt guilty. Robert Besser was a huge fan, so excited about the Stanley Cup that he'd already repainted his trailer and ordered special drum heads. And we just made him feel like a criminal. But that's part of working a case, and there was nothing I could do about that. Where to next? Asked Margret. Cafeteria, said Darius. Margret and I both gave him a look. Why? I wanted to thank the staff, he answered. You know my favorite saying, right? Put the biscuit in the basket, said Margret. So as a present, they made me a basket of biscuits, he explained. Absolutely delicious. We got to the kitchen and Ms. Wilkes, the cafeteria manager, lit up when she saw Darius. Looking for more biscuits? She asked. Not now, said Darius, but don't be surprised if I show up for breakfast tomorrow. Ms. Wilkes, we're wondering if you can help us, Mr. Albright said. We're trying to recreate the activities from the day. Is something wrong? She asked. It's complicated, he replied. She could tell he didn't want to go into specifics. How can I help? Do you remember when Mr. King came in here? Sure, she said, right after the last lunch, in between 5th and 6th periods. So the students were all gone, he asked. It was just the kitchen staff and the two of them, she responded, and that big black case they were wheeling around. What happened while you were here? I asked Darius. I thanked everyone for the biscuits and we all posed for pictures. Well, not all of us, said Ms. Wilkes. Doug Thiel's from Chicago. He's a die-hard Blackhawks fan, and since the Caps beat them in the finals, he's been a bit of a sore loser. Where was he during this? I asked. Unloading a delivery, she replied. Here are the pictures, Juliet said, showing us her phone. And where was the case while you took them? I asked. Right here by the pantry, she said. And where was Mr. Thiel taking care of the delivery? Asked Margaret. In the pantry, said Ms. Wilkes. I looked at the angle of the photos and realized that while she was taking them, Juliet's back was turned to the case. And it was just a few seconds? I asked. I took the pictures, she answered, and then I got everyone's email addresses so I could send them copies. Said Margaret. So your back was turned for at least a minute or two. That might be enough time. Juliet slumped. I've just made one mistake after another. Darius put his arm around her shoulder. Don't be so hard on yourself. We're in this together. Inside the pantry, we were surprised to see a row of 55-gallon storage drums. They were the perfect size for hiding the cup. What are these? I asked. We cook over 1,000 meals a day, said Ms. Wilkes. So we order lots of ingredients in bulk. We spent the next 10 minutes opening each drum, but they all checked out clean. Still, Ms. Wilkes admitted that some drums may have been put on a truck and taken away after the delivery. She also said that Mr. Thiel had already left for the day, explaining he gets here a few hours before school to start cooking, so he gets off early. Mr. Albright thanked her for helping us, and we returned to his office. It was obvious Juliet had given up hope, but Margaret and I still worked the case. Let's talk it through, said Margaret. The first question is, do you really think Mr. Thiel would steal the cup just because the Caps beat his favorite team? I don't think so, I said. But it's possible, just like it's possible Kinsley Vance's producer stole it so she could get a big story. And it's possible Robert Bessier stole it because he is angry at how the team treats the pep band. Which means we're right back where we started, said Juliet. I went to protest, but she held up a hand to stop me. I'm not blaming you. You did great. You two are super smart. The problem is that I'm dumb. Or at least I was dumb today. The cup is my responsibility, and it was taken because I didn't watch it properly. The parade was scheduled to start in 5 minutes. We could hear the pep band warming up outside. If Darius doesn't have the Stanley Cup when he's riding in that convertible, it will be all over social media before the parade makes it halfway down the street, said Juliet. I can't let the team find out that way. I have to tell them I lost it. Say it was my fault, Darius offered. I scored 53 goals and was the MVP of the Stanley Cup Finals. They're not going to fire me. She laughed. I appreciate it, but I'm telling them it's my fault because it is. The bass drums began to pound, and people started chanting, Rock the Red! Rock the Red! Time was up, and we didn't have the cup. And then it hit me. Something was wrong. I wasn't sure what, but something was out of place. Suddenly, images started flying through my mind. The Stanley Cup, biscuits and baskets, sousaphone, storage drums, bass drums, Kinsley Vance's clothes, the cafeteria, street hockey, Blackhawks. It was all a blur. And then I saw it, as clear as day. Suddenly, everything made sense, and all I heard was, Rock the Red! Rock the Red! Juliet looked distraught as she waited for her boss to answer the phone. Just as she was about to talk, I snatched it from her. Sorry, wrong number, I said, using a fake deep voice. Then I ended the call. Why'd you do that? Asked Juliet. Because I know where the Stanley Cup is, I said with a Cheshire grin. How? Exclaimed Darius. It's complicated, I answered. But the first thing you need to know is that Rock the Red changes everything. Okie dokie. So that was the end of the story itself. Now it's your turn to guess who did it, who stole the Stanley Cup, and why and how. And if you can get all those, you're a genius, because I don't think I got it. But I am going to turn to page 366, just like it tells me to do, and I will make the solution video. So I will see you there. Bye.